my name is Omar. I'm a product marketing manager here with SolarWinds MSP, and today we're going to be taking a look at NetPath. I want to start off by saying that this is an extremely important launch for us, because what we're doing is we're taking a product which was available from the core IT side of the business, known as NetPath, and integrating it into the RMM platforms housed in the MSP side of the business. SolarWinds is made up of three different parts: core IT, MSP, and cloud, where each one serves their different purposes. However, we are one big happy family, where we have over 800 R&D engineers working on the next generation of platforms, being able to again serve you in your business, large or small, simple or complex. For anyone on the line that has to manage a network, I can honestly say that your network responsibilities have grown, and this comes in two different ways. We're seeing about 70% of heavy cloud users are now pursuing a hybrid strategy. So what I mean is that if you have things in the cloud today, we're seeing more and more of them come into on-premises or hybrid deployments. The same can be said for the opposite, which is 58% of organizations are now embracing cloud computing. And this number grows year by year as we see a higher adoption of cloud and SaaS-based services. Now, regardless for you, the offsite services limit visibility into issues. And what this translates into is that as services have moved outside the network, you are still responsible for delivery. No matter who you are, especially if you're an MSP, the end user does not care where the application is, they only care about their access to the application. Another problem you have is that you have no visibility into critical paths. Traditional monitoring tools don't really represent the whole thing, which is the network. Pretty much everything stops at your firewall. And the last thing is that whenever a problem does happen, you're having to be reactive, which is slow time to resolution. You have to make the right phone calls to the right people and send the right emails in order to get the problem resolved. You're not really monitoring this in any way, shape, or form. So the solution that NetPath provides is that it helps you see network paths, response times, and node performance across on-premise, cloud, and hybrid services in a visual form. Let's talk about how it works. I've set up here a hypothetical example. Let's say you wanted to send a letter, not an email, just an actual letter to Google's headquarters. Now, when you send a letter, there can be three different things that happen. You send the letter, it gets there to Google all right. You call them up a week later. You say, hey, did you get my letter? All good. You can also send a letter to Google, but it never gets there. So you call Google up a week later. You say, hey, did you get my letter? They never got it, and you have no idea why. The third scenario is that you send a letter to Google, but it just takes too long. And you're wondering why this happens. You're going to call Google up a week later and say, hey, did you get my letter? I've been waiting to hear back from you. And they said, no, we just got it. Why did it take so long? So that's three different scenarios, and really have no information as to why any of them happened. So you said to yourself, you know what? I'm going to be a little bit smarter. I'm going to send a letter with a tracking number. And now what you're able to see is how that letter travels from the time it leaves your hand to Google's headquarters and every path and hop in between. You know, when you send mail, this can be different things like sorting stations and different transportation vehicles for them to actually get to the right destination. Now with that, you can start to look at those three scenarios we had earlier with a little bit more clarity. For instance, let's say you send a letter to Google, but it actually never gets there. Instead of having to call Google up and say, hey, did you get my letter? You can instead call the location where the letter has actually been stopped or where it's experiencing issues. Because what NetPath reveals is the phone and email of where that letter is currently sitting. Now, the really cool thing about NetPath is that it does this every 10 minutes. So you'll be able to collect a lot of information of what sending letters was like at that point in time. And then now, with all that information, you can start to get alerted on performance. You'll actually be able to see where the problem is. You'll have performance metrics, 24/7 monitoring on history and path performance, node hop on information on who to contact, and all this will be presented to you at any point in time because we do have up to 30 days of data retention. So again, the story that we just told here is that NetPath monitors the connectivity of the end user to their applications, whether hosted in the cloud, on-premises, or hybrid. So it's not just about sending mail, it's knowing how we send mail so that we can better troubleshoot sending mail when we can no longer send it or it just takes too long. And again, this is an example here, so really what I'm talking about is your cloud applications, your on-premise applications, your hybrid applications. For instance, Salesforce. It's not just about accessing Salesforce, it's knowing how we access Salesforce so that we can troubleshoot scenarios when it takes too long to get to Salesforce or we can't get to Salesforce at all. This is a pivotal moment because what this actually is end user experience monitoring. You want to be able to understand what the quality of service is like for your end users. NetPath is the answer. Now, in terms of the sales model, it's going to be sold in packs containing 5 paths each with volume discounts. And again, this is just a number multiplier, and I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can. Here's a couple different examples of different paths. All right, so you have different cloud deployments such as Office 365, Salesforce. You also have different cloud applications that we rely on, things like MSP Anywhere, Manager, MSP Backup, the SolarWinds RMM dashboard. On-premise deployments can be things like Exchange, SharePoint, or again, your own Office server. You have VoIP systems, which is again very popular. We're seeing those examples used a lot, or also your SolarWinds and Central deployment. Hybrid deployments can be things like your websites, your primary and secondary WAN internet connections, or any data centers that you have as well. Now, ask yourself which ones are important to my customers and their operational success. Again, you could say all of them, which is great, because you'll just buy more paths. Or what you can really think about is which ones do my customers absolutely need to make sure that they can function at 100%. Here's a couple examples that we picked out, things like Office, Salesforce, your VoIP, and your internet connection, obviously. The other question you can ask is which ones are important to me, all right? Because again, as an MSP, you need to be able to make sure that you are able to provide the services to the customer at any point in time. So with that, you've identified 5 paths that you'd like to be able to deploy out to one of your customers. Multiply that by the number of customers you have, and guess what? That's how many packs you're going to buy. Again, the pack isn't actually containing 5 specific paths. It's just really 5 paths, which you can deploy out in any way, shape, or form. Let's go through a demo. NetPath is accessible from here in the dashboard under NetPath. Clicking on that opens up a second tab, which will take you to this screen. Here we will be able to add new paths in a very simple manner. You just select your client, select your site, select a server, type in the host name or IP address of where you're looking to map out the path to. Once that path is created, it'll automatically start to collect information. I've already added it in here. Let's take a look at how Salesforce is experiencing right now. We can already see that Salesforce is actually experiencing some problems. Both the link and the Salesforce side seems to be experiencing some latency issues. Just like that, I can actually see who to contact on Salesforce side in order to see why they're having this problem. But the best answer for me is that now I know that it's actually not my problem, it's Salesforce's problem. So I don't need to spend any time to run any trace routes or pings in order to understand, why is Salesforce so slow. Now this is a simplified view, and we can see here that on Salesforce's side, they have 13 different nodes which it can take to reach the destination. We can double click to expand this, and now we can see that there's all the different nodes that are required in order to reach Salesforce. I can do this again and again in order to see the entire exploded network view. Now let's say your customer constantly keeps having Salesforce problems at around 9 a.m. every day. Instead of you having to be ready and run a trace route at that time, NetPath has already revealed that information for me. And I can go back any point in time if I need to from the last 30 days to see this information. I can see that there's definitely been some problems with Salesforce especially. So to conclude, we can first start off by saying that NetPath is extremely simple to set up. You can set up a path in minutes and begin monitoring your end user quality of service. It's extremely powerful because again, it's all about that value proposition that we keep saying. Go from reactive to proactive with a new feature only available from SolarWinds. And lastly, we have the pricing to match, which is extremely aggressively priced in order to really start delivering the amount of monitoring that your customers require for their end users.